Every now and then we encounter stories that inspire us, tales of underdogs who rise above seemingly insurmountable odds to achieve victory where all hope seems lost. Today we're going to compare two such stories, each featuring the valiant efforts of a young shepherd named David against a formidable giant named Goliath. But wait, let me explain. On one side, we have the modern retelling of David's story, a powerful first-person narrative titled, "I Am David, and This Is My Story," which tells the tale of a young Jewish boy named David during World War II. On the other side stands the classic epic narrative simply titled Goliath, which recounts the famous biblical account of the battle between David and the Philistine giant from the Old Testament. While both narratives share the same basic premise, they differ greatly in their perspectives, themes, and overall messages. Let's dive in and explore these differences further. First off, let's take a look at the narrative perspective and focus of each story. I Am David, and This Is My Story is told from the first-person point of view, allowing us to see the story through the eyes of its protagonist, young David. The story is deeply personal, focusing on David's thoughts, emotions, and experiences as he navigates the horrors of war and persecution. We witness his fear, doubt, and struggle to maintain his humanity in the face of unimaginable circumstances. The Goliath in this story may represent an internal struggle or an abstract challenge, like injustice or fear of losing his identity. Ultimately, the victory David achieves is a personal triumph over adversity. In contrast, Goliath is told from a third-person point of view, with a narrator recounting the events as if it were a historical or theological account. The focus here is on the external conflict between David and the Philistine giant, Goliath, and the ultimate victory of good over evil. It's important to note that this story isn't just about David's bravery, but also about the battle between Israel and the Philistines and God's power to deliver his people. The victory is a demonstration of God's might, not just a personal triumph. So in essence, the first story is about a young boy coming of age and prevailing against the odds in his own unique way. Meanwhile, the second story is about a divinely chosen young man who defeats a monstrous giant to secure a victory for his people with God's help. The next difference we'll discuss is the role of the protagonist in each story. In I Am David, and This Is My Story, David is portrayed as a relatable, vulnerable protagonist who must use his wits and determination to survive. He is a regular kid thrust into extraordinary circumstances who relies on his inner strength and the lessons he's learned from his father. His weapon in this story is not a literal sling and stone, but rather his inner strength, learned lessons, and resourcefulness. He uses what he has to fight back against those who seek to harm him. Conversely, in Goliath, young David is depicted as a humble shepherd boy chosen by God to do his will. His bravery is directly linked to his unwavering faith in God. He doesn't rely on his own strength, but instead on divine intervention to defeat his enemy. His weapon, the sling and stone, are symbolic of his faith and trust in God's guidance. Furthermore, when David confronts Goliath, he explicitly states that he comes in the name of the Lord Almighty, emphasizing that his true weapon is God's power, not the physical stone in his hand. Speaking of antagonists, let's discuss the role of Goliath in each story. In I Am David, and This Is My Story, Goliath isn't a literal giant, but rather a symbolic giant, representing a larger impersonal force or systemic evil, such as a prison camp or oppressive regime. He embodies the seemingly insurmountable odds stacked against David and the Jewish people during World War II. His character serves to personify the difficulties and dangers David faces throughout his journey. In contrast, in the biblical account of Goliath, The antagonist is a literal giant, a physical manifestation of evil and a direct threat to God's people. His immense size and heavy armor highlight the miraculous nature of his defeat at the hands of a small shepherd boy. He represents everything that David and Israel's people face in battle against the Philistines. In the end, both stories feature a decisive confrontation between David and Goliath, leading to a victory that brings hope and relief to those oppressed by the seemingly invincible giant. However, the nature of the victory differs significantly between the two narratives. In I Am David, and This Is My Story, the victory is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of personal narrative. By sharing his story, David finds a way to overcome the trauma of his past and regain a sense of agency and hope for the future. The emotional impact of this story lies in its portrayal of the Holocaust and the strength of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable adversity. The story inspires empathy and admiration for David's courage and determination to survive, and tells a powerful tale of survival against all odds. In Goliath, the victory is a clear-cut demonstration of God's power and his intervention in human affairs. David's victory over Goliath reinforces the message of the Bible, reminding readers of God's faithfulness and his ability to deliver his people from their enemies. The emotional impact of this story lies in the awe and reverence for God's power and his choice to use a young shepherd boy to accomplish his will. The story serves as a reminder to trust in God's guidance and strength, even when faced with seemingly insurmountable challenges. Lastly, let's examine the messages conveyed by each story. I Am David, and This Is My Story focuses on several interconnected messages. Firstly, it underscores the importance of personal narrative and the power of storytelling to heal and inspire. By sharing his story, David finds a way to cope with his traumatic experiences and reclaim his sense of self. Secondly, the story highlights the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity. Despite the horrific circumstances he endures, David retains his compassion, courage, and determination to survive. Finally, it offers a message of hope, demonstrating that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can endure and ultimately prevail. The emotional impact of the story stems from its portrayal of the Holocaust and the strength of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable adversity. Goliath carries a more straightforward theological message. It emphasizes the importance of faith, humility, and divine providence in the face of adversity. David's unwavering faith in God and his willingness to obey God's will are instrumental in his victory over the seemingly invincible Goliath. The emotional impact of the story comes from the awe and reverence for God's power and his choice to use a young shepherd boy to accomplish his will. In conclusion, both I Am David and This Is My Story and Goliath are powerful narratives that have stood the test of time. They share the common thread of a young protagonist named David facing off against a formidable opponent named Goliath. However, the similarities between the two stories only serve to highlight their fundamental differences. I Am David is a story of self-reliance and personal victory, whereas Goliath is a story of divine intervention and a victory for all of God's people. Each story serves a different purpose and delivers a unique message to its audience. One inspires us with the strength of the human spirit, while the other teaches a timeless lesson about faith and the power of the divine. Ultimately, both stories enrich our cultural landscape and offer valuable insights into the complexities of courage, faith, and the human condition.